Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to Too Ambitious. I'm so happy that you all are joining me today. Make sure you tell me where you're joining me from today because this is pretty awesome. Because today I have such an extraordinary, phenomenal woman with me today who's here to talk about her extraordinary career and leadership and the new business that she's recently founded. But in the meantime, I want you guys to light up the screen. Let me know where you're joining me from. I think today is what, the second week in 2026 or the third week? I'm confused already because it feels like it's just racing already. But I hope everyone's new year is off to a great start. And today I'm just excited to have this woman on our show. She's also a friend. Some of you may already know her because she's that big of a deal, especially if you are in the field of public relations. But let me tell you a little bit about her as we get started. So first up, we have the founder of the Fran Effect, Francesca Weems. Now, she is the former broadcast journalist who helps leaders and brands stop performing and start resonating with clarity, culture, and confidence. Love that, the three C's. She's an award-winning public relations pro, trusted by global brands because she says what needs to be said in rooms where people usually stay quiet and doesn't flinch when it gets uncomfortable, thus earning the nickname Fearless Fran. So today, let's learn a little bit more about Fearless Fran and welcome her to the show because she's that extraordinary. So welcome, Fearless Fran, to Too Ambitious.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much for having me, friend. What a great intro.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. Listen, we have to start off the show because we've already set it up with you being fearless. How did you get that nickname, being Fearless Fran?
Quite literally, like you said in the intro, by saying things other people would not say, particularly in boardrooms and in large, organizations, as well as small avenues and venues as well. But it is about speaking your mind, but also being calculated. And it doesn't mean you're without fear. It just means you say it anyway. I say things that need to be said. I think that's just point blank period where we need to be in this day and age.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I love that you do that fearlessly. And you know what? When you're doing that, I'm sure it teaches the rest of us to do the same, to speak up and to use our voice in a way that can make long-term impact. Now, I know that you recently started your company, the Fran Effect. In your own words, can you describe what it is that you do through your company?
To kind of keep it simple, the Fran Effect is essentially a courageous conversation and communications consultancy. So it goes back to my name, Fearless Fran. And that's why the tagline is Fearless Starts Here, because in where we are today, we're in perilous times, and we need more courageous conversations to take place within organizations, as well as on broader social media and traditional television and other media outlets as well. This is a time to speak up and not let complacency keep you in your place. There's a lot at stake this year and beyond, and it's imperative that people, stand up for what they believe in.
Yeah.
That's what I help them do.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. We are in times that, yes, it requires all of us to be brave and to be fearless. We know like a lot of companies are navigating these times in our country. In basically the work that you're doing, what does fearless communication look like from your point of view? Like, how does that look in practice? If there's like a corporation or even an individual watching right now, what does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So it depends on obviously the topic, but for example, we'll talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, which has gone through a myriad of different changes over the past year plus in terms of companies rebranding, sometimes moving away from the work altogether. But this is a time for companies to stand their ground and not waffle. Now, we know, again, there's a lot of stuff happening in the landscape, and you need to make sure all of your legalese and all that stuff is fortified. And so it is working with legal teams, HR professionals, broader chief diversity and inclusion officers, but it's allowing companies to be able to continue to share the great work they're doing in the space even amidst chaos, even amidst turmoil. So that takes some level of fearlessness. And, this is about, again, getting companies into trouble. It is making sure you are clear on where your constituents and your consumers stand. And that, again, takes some level of boldness, particularly when we've seen so many backtrack altogether. So that's just
Yeah.
one example. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for clarifying that. I also want to talk a little bit about, your company, the Fran Effect, and we'll get back to the other stuff as well. But your company, first of all, I love the name, the Fran Effect, just thought I'd throw that out there. But I know that starting a company can be a challenge, but for you as a founder, what's been the most challenging part and what's been the most rewarding part of, getting out there and saying, you know what, this is my company, the Fran Effect.
The most challenging part is the standing up process itself of like going and registering things, building out your logo, making sure you're building out your services and all that stuff and being able to share it with your hopeful consumer base. The most rewarding thing, though, is working with organizations that care about the things that you do, that you're able to align with in ways sometimes that if you are at an agency or in-house that you don't have the ability to kind of dictate who you work with. And so there is a level of freedom that comes with having your own consultancy. All the people that I work with really care about, equity work in the space. And so they say a lot of these terminologies with their chest. And that's my type of friends. And so these are the type of people that I would love to work with when I have the ability to kind of pick and choose. So I would say that that's been really great on that front.
Yeah, for sure. We love people who say it with their chest, as they
Say it
say.
with your chest. Do
Say
you
it with
mean
your
it? Stop
chest.
waffling.
No, I love that. I also think that, one of the reasons why I think that you've been so successful in your work and what you do in your business is, you come from journalism, you were a broadcast journalist. Tell me how your background has basically, lent itself to the career that you've created for yourself.
Absolutely. So spent 10 years in journalism before coming to the public relations side. They call it the dark side of communications. At the, you know,
What?
at the crux of all this, we are storytellers, right? So
Right.
storytelling, I've been a storyteller my whole life. It feels like storyteller on the journalism side. Now I'm a storyteller on behalf of organizations and companies, and really taking information and cutting through the clutter. And so that's what's really helped me, that's a big takeaway from my journalism background, is to be able to identify what a story is and what it's not. And I found that, a lot of corporations think they have stories to tell. And yes, you can tell it maybe on your social media channels and other places, but it's not going to always translate to traditional media. As somebody that was in newsrooms, I can identify stories pretty easily and say, this is what's going to carry, this is what's not going to carry. And these are the type of elements that we're going to need to have, B-roll, video, as you will, photos and imagery that back up the story, stuff like that. So it's helped with media training and media strategy. It's helped with public speaking. It's helped with confidence. I wouldn't have traded the experience for the world, but they're not apples to apples. And so there definitely was a learning curve when I came to the public relations side. But in terms, again, of being able to speak to executives, speak in rooms, I was very accustomed because I used to be on camera.
Yeah. Well, I'm super happy you went to the dark side, as you say,
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're working with your clients, and just pulling from some of your own words through my research is that you cut through the noise and find the human truth. What does that process look like? And I know it's not a one and done, I would assume, when you're working with a client. It's not like you're like, hey, we just worked together. I'll see you next. I'll won't see you again. So what does that process look like for you, and how do you sort of structure working with your clients?
Absolutely. So it's, to your point, it's not a one and done process. It's multi-pronged. And I'll probably just segue into some of the services that I
Yeah.
offer that
Yeah.
help with this, so kind of identifying. So it does include bold messaging strategy, meeting and speaking, coaching, overall executive visibility. You have to have the presence. You have to understand the language that you're using, avoiding jargon. We live in a day and age right now where everybody's using AI, and this technology is moving at warp speed, and it's fantastic, and it's going to change the way we operate on so many levels. However, we're also seeing a lot of AI slap online that is not, conducive and very meaningless in a lot of ways. And so when you have technology like this that's coming to the forefront, if people are just saying anything to say something, you've got to be able to cut through and actually have meaning. So that is, in my opinion, being very emotive. It's actually sharing and trying to be as humanistic as possible in your writing, in the way you deliver, so that you can actually attract people that are like-minded, that want to be a part of your community, that want to be a part of your brand. It's so important, in my opinion, and I think you'll see this in research, that customers feel they know the brand. And so
Yeah.
as an executive or a member of the community that you're representing, it's really important that people understand who you are, who's the person behind this operation. And so much of this is important for you to be able to cut through. So it is a lot, like I said, it's emotive, it's sharing what you feel you're open to actually share about your journey. It's not making it appear like you're perfect and your trajectory to potentially the C-suite was some amazing, just pathway without any type of hurdles. That's not real life. And so we've got to also pull back the curtains on some of the hurdles people have experienced too. So transparency is part of this.
Absolutely. And I do agree with you. You are the chief storytelling officer. So, I think a lot of people don't realize the power of story, and telling their own story and sharing their journeys. That does make your audience or your clients, basically see you as a human being, because our stories is what separates all of us, And you mentioned AI slop, and I know there are people out there who are using AI in a way to sort of kind of circumvent the storytelling process. But you could spot it like a mile away, though, because it's just not authentic. So, how is AI impacting your work, if at all? Because I would say that some people are probably thinking, well, I can just type it into Claude, or why do I need people like you?
Oh yeah, AI has disrupted the communications industry in a huge way, and some companies do feel like they can take roles completely away, and use AI instead. That is not what I recommend. I see AI as a partner, as a co-pilot. I think it's fantastic. And I know these are earlier iterations. As the technology continues to get better and better, it's going to help us do our jobs even at a higher level than we're able to use the technology today. So I'm really excited. I'm not threatened by AI. I again find it as use it as a co-pilot, but I'm really leaning into the things that require the human element. So yes, you can use it and leverage it for writing, but when you're in broadcast, AI is not going to be able to talk or speak for you. It's not going to be a robot on the television screen. So you're still going to need to interact with humans. And so I'm leaning in. Everything that I offer is that element that requires the human backdrop, the human element. And so we are going to use AI to help us with some of those tools, messaging development, other things that we can refine together. But your delivery, your ability to speak to people is always going to be 100% human. So I think it behooves all communications professionals to think about ways they can continue to lean into the human element. Media strategy is still very important. A lot of corporations and organizations want to see themselves represented in traditional news outlets. Yes, you have Substack and other places where you can kind of do your own storytelling. And a lot of companies have their own newsrooms today, which are equally important. But if you're going to be able to land stories, that means relationship building and rapport with reporters who are human. So you might be able to use AI to craft the pitch, but you should go to coffees with them. You should get to know their beat. You should be reading their writing, all that stuff. So that's what I recommend to comms professionals. Lean in as much as you can on the human element. Use it as a co-pilot.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk a little bit about your services that you offer for the Fran Effect, and I'm going to show your website as well, because you talk about some of those services. So tell me about how you sort of kind of structure the type of services that you're providing based on, what people's needs are and everything.
Absolutely. And these go kind of to my natural skill sets, the things that I've been doing in large and smaller agencies for the past decade. So again, bold messaging strategy. We have to know what are we actually telling the audience? What do we want to
Right.
say? How do we cut through, avoid jargon? Then it'll help them in their media and speaking. And that's why I do a lot of coaching on that front. So whether they're going to be speaking to smaller crowds, larger crowds, I will help them be able to relay that information in a way that's digestible, that's
Mhm.
again really human, and
Yep.
at times, depending on their ability and comfort zone, to be able to be fearless in that moment. So I also do coaching on that front, helping them land media opportunities, prepping them for media opportunities. I also do a lot of work in the cultural as well as diversity, equity, inclusion space. So I
Mhm.
used to be a director of diversity, equity, inclusion, have built teams from the ground up, and then
Wow.
also worked with a lot of chief diversity inclusion officers to be able to relay what they're doing in this space. Some are calling it belonging now, some are saying it's engagement, some are just using inclusion, those type of terminology. So whatever the umbrella is, it allows them to be able to talk about what they're doing to reach communities in today's landscape. And that includes multicultural comms too. That means reaching communities on the platforms that they're actually absorbing information. And then I
Mhm.
also offer an executive visibility package, which is
Mm.
everything. So that's media strategy, that's events prep, that's awards,
Yeah.
that's, like I said, overall messaging, making sure that they are ready to do all those things. And that's kind of focused on a singular executive, if that makes sense.
Yes, it definitely does. I think that, everything that you sort of laid out is so like practical and to me seems like a no-brainer, to hire someone like you to help to sort of, if, me being an individual, but if I was running like my own brand or business, I would definitely sort of know that I would need this type of professionalism and services from you. How are clients finding you? Do you do like a lot of promotion? I've noticed you do leverage social media too, as well as we do, you know?
As we should. Yeah, so a lot of it is through social media. It's also through contacts in the business that know my work firsthand,
Yeah.
former colleagues, and then to your point, people finding me in Google searches and other platforms. So hopefully people go to my website, thefraneffect.com, where they
Yeah.
can learn more about all the things that I have happening. But yeah, they're finding me through a myriad of ways. But word of mouth is still very, very important.
Yes.
And again, going back to that human factor, it's like if you telling somebody I've worked with Francesca slash Fran, my nickname, I've worked with Fran, she can deliver, is going to carry far more than anything else in today's society. So I really do lean on those testimonials, which are also on my website, but more than that, those interrelationships and those in-person testimonials. So yes.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that strikes me about you, in addition to you being fearless, um, and just to kind of touch a little bit on the human aspect, is how did you become this woman, Fran? The fearless Fran, the one that, aside from your expertise, and obviously, you are, a graduate of UC Berkeley, bachelor's and master's,
Two
and
times. Two
and
times.
hey, there you go, and just like this extraordinary experience. But, to be fearless does not happen just, it doesn't just happen. So how did you become this woman, and how can the rest of us be that way as well?
Well, I hope not everybody has to go through the same trajectory that it took to get me here. But just for a little bit of background, I grew up in
Yeah.
foster care. I also grew up homeless. And so when you're navigating, systemic issues, when you're navigating complex systems like the foster care system, there is a level of resilience that is required to make it out. Only 2 out of 10 foster kids go on to be contributing members of society. 50% will end up homeless. Another percentage will end up in jail. The last percentage will end up dead. So the statistics are jarring. I was aware of that coming up in the system. There was a lot of very limited expectations on what I'd be able to achieve because when I entered foster care full time at 8.5, I couldn't read or write. And so I had to catch up. And so to take myself from not being able to read and write at 8.5 to UC Berkeley for both undergrad and grad school on a full academic ride, even though I ran track. But I want to make sure it's clear it was an academic ride. Speaks volumes to what I had to navigate. And so once you come through the type of background that I have, it really unleashes something inside of you to not stay silent, because there's so much at stake for others, right? So when you think, so much of the work that I do, even in the communication space, is to make sure I'm bringing other communities along. It's so important, particularly in the perilous times that we are having today. So that's what cultivated this voice for me to speak out, because I am advocating for little Frans, the generation that's coming behind me. And again, there are definitely moments where I felt my voice has been stifled and haven't been able to speak up. And now I'm trying to continue to push myself to say things that need to be said in rooms that hold the power to be able to make the difference we all need. So it is a continual practice. And when everybody's barometer for Fearless is going to be different. Some people are going to be 100% speak truth to power. Some people might say something very minimal in a meeting, but that pushed them in that moment to speak up, because I don't know, a CEO was in the at the table, etc. Normally they would have never said that in front of a CEO or their boss or a mentor. Everybody's barometer is different. And so you just got to give yourself grace as you continue to build that muscle, but you have to flex it like a muscle. You have to continue to use it, or it will not be valuable for you.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing your story. As one of our viewers are watching says, such an inspiring story. And I absolutely agree. You had a difficult childhood and you've turned it yourself and your life into something to be proud of. And I think so many of us see you and just like, wow, that's truly amazing what you've been able to accomplish to this point. And I know, no doubt, you're still going. So, still more to come, I'm sure. When you are building out this first company of yours, because, I'm sure this, it's the first company, but I'm sure that could become more in the future, this first company, what was the thought process for you when you were starting this company? Was this something that you've always wanted to do? Or was it like, this is kind of, now's the time to do it?
No, this was okay. Yes and no. I think at some point I always knew that I would be a business owner. I thought potentially would happen at a later stage, but the reality is my role was impacted. And so when you have something happen to you, you've got to make the transition to something that will actually be able to allow you to make money and live. And so what I did was, in that moment, think about things that give me joy in the work that I have had the ability to do for the past 2 decades, particularly this past decade in public relations. And I doubled down on those things. I was like, these are the areas that I like the most about communications, and the ability to cut through clutter, the ability to help people with their messaging. And so I structured it on the joys of communication. There's a lot of sometimes back end stuff that can be like really strenuous. And so I cut out all that stuff, and I focused on the things that I felt like were the most tangible and the brightest spots of my skill set. So it's a yes and no. I did think at some point I'd probably have something that was tied specifically to my name. I did think you would be a little bit further off, but I'm so grateful for the journey, and we will continue to see how it unfolds.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just wanted to ask because, sometimes people are saying, entrepreneurship, it was a calling. So, I wasn't sure if that was the case or not.
Yeah, I think we all have it in us. And I would implore people to think deeply about entrepreneurship. I think it can be great on many fronts if you have the skill set to be able to do that, if you understand the business, if you again have clients or people that would follow you or to your next endeavor. I'd make sure you try to build that out before you depart your company. But if your role is disrupted, I think this can be a great bridge, even if it's not going to be something that you leverage long term. That you can at your disposal. I truly do think, though, at least in communications, you're going to see a lot more fractional work, a lot more consultants. You're already seeing it just with the massive amounts of layoffs that are taking place across various companies, large and as well as small. And so in implores everyone to think about their future in a way that maybe it may not be a traditional W-2. It could be a combo. It could be that you go back in, but you're always prepared in case something happens, because who knows what the future looks like. And I think it's imperative for everyone to be prepared no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. When should someone reach out to you for your expertise? Because I've seen some stuff where people wait until, obviously everything is completely imploded. Um, but when do you even know, like, okay, I need to call somebody. I need the Fran effect. I need to get somebody in here to help me.
Well, yeah, I hope that my effect is that you're courageous, that you're fearless. So I think people come to me because their messages are not cutting through. They're quite boring. They're really safe. They're talking, but they're not really saying anything. Their audience is definitely checked out, and or they're preparing for a really, really big moment that they need additional guidance on. Something
Right.
they've never been on television before, particularly broadcast. You're going to make sure you want to make sure that you actually sat down with a media strategist before you go on television, because it is a whole different beast, particularly if the segment is between 3 and 5 minutes. That means you've
Right.
really got to compact what you're saying and do it in an impactful way. And I love doing, doing that work with clients. So a lot of it is if your messaging isn't cutting through, if you're not actually getting traction on platforms, if you would like to see yourself in media, then these are the type of things that you should call me for. So
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense from that front. But at the crux of it is your messaging actually cutting through? Do people actually understand what you're talking about? A lot of people talk in corporate speech, and there's a time and space for all of that, but that's not how naturally people are able to relay information. That's not how your consumers digest information. So you do have to package information based on who you are actually talking to. And I think that's really important for the audience to understand too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you work with individuals and large or small corporations, or
All of it. Mm-hmm.
all of them?
As
Okay.
long as you got money, you are welcome at the Fran Effect. Mm-hmm.
Spoken like a true.
Where the money resides, we work. But again, I implore people to look at my background, to understand the things that I'm focused on. And then you can assess, oh, is this the type of strategist and consultant that I want to work with? Because there's specific things that I'm focusing on. I do have a broad plate from tech to healthcare to consumer. So it is definitely industry agnostic, but you do want to know coming on, I'm going to press you. I'm going to push you to be courageous in whatever field you are talking about. And so, yeah, I should know that.
Yes, that's right. I mean, you come to Fearless Fran, you got to be ready to not be fearful,
Right. But again, it doesn't mean, no, you can be fearful, but that means you're going to do it anyway. You're going to say it anyway. You're going to say it with your chest. You're not going to waffle. Yes.
Yes. I love that. Do you consider yourself ambitious, Fran?
Oh, I'm very ambitious. I have large goals. I've always had large goals. Even when I was a youngster, I think, again, that's how I've been able to get here. You have to have that tenaciousness to go after what you want. And I do think that this is going to be a great year, and I'm really excited to see what's to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And where can we find you, Fran? How's the best way to contact you to access the Fran Effect?
Access. So again, you can go to my website, thefraneffect.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram at the Fran Effect as well. So there's a myriad of different channels. Go and find me on one of those amazing platforms.
Yeah.
I will hopefully get back to you in a timely manner.
Yes, I love that. The opportunity to work with the Francesca Weems it's a gift. It's a gift, everyone. So,
I mean, but it's also a gift for you, because the Trish, right? I mean,
yeah, you're right.
birds of a feather. I mean,
that's very true. Hey, there you go. I want to thank you so much, Fran, for taking the time to be in community with me, and to share more about you and your business, the Fran Effect. I think the work that you're doing can be life-changing and extraordinary. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you for having me on your show, for being just a good friend, an advocate, a cheerleader, a photographer. People don't know this woman has some major skills. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, you'll find that a lot of those photos that are on there, Trish
Oh my
is who
gosh.
took them. So we got to give you some kudos on the artistic. Not only are you Miss Fashionista, you have all the intangibles. So I just want to thank you.
You're so welcome, my friend. You're so welcome. Thank you so much for being a guest on Too Ambitious. And I wish you continued success with the Fran Effect. Yeah, I love seeing you shine. And, I know that wherever there is success and where the money resides, that's where Fran is,
Where the money resides.
You're hilarious. She's hilarious as well. Well, thank you everyone for watching Too Ambitious. We'll see you next time. Have a great rest of your week and continue having a fantastic 2026. All right. Bye, everyone.